Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, wherever you are. Jan Roberts here from South Africa, and this is already number 16. I've done 3 weeks so far. I was going to do 1 to 2 weeks about mindfulness, about self-care. Guess what's coming next? About self-care and to see how this was going. But there is so many areas, and people kept asking me, what about this and what about that? So I thought, we'll just keep going, and I'm enjoying it as well. And even though I know a fair bit about it, the research I'm doing all the time brings up so much more that my amazing partner Artie and I have already talked about doing a webinar very shortly about the whole self-care thing. But it's a new week, and number 15, the fifth one last week didn't come on a Friday, but only yesterday because we had a lot of thunder and lightning. So, and that was about the value of compassion. But today, in self-care, I'm going to talk about mindfulness. And as you might see at the top of the video is mindfulness part 1, because again, there was so much that I wanted to share with you. I thought, either it's going to be a very long video or maybe do it over 2 days. So guess what's coming tomorrow? Mindfulness part 2, the sequel. So the reason I've done this over 2 days, and I could have done some more over 2 days, but I just wanted to give you an idea into all the different subjects that cover self-care, and there's so much about it, that how we really need to look after ourselves. But this is yet another fascinating subject with so much information that I said, I will take this over 2 sessions. And with many of the businesses now back in full swing, or at least operating again in some form or another, and many children returning to school, there needs to be a certain focus on health and well-being, but that seems impossible as there are so many challenges, so many issues, and so many problems to solve. Where do you start? And again, every time we have big challenges, we forget about the self-care, we forget about looking after ourselves. But when we feel stressed and overburdened, it can often seem that we're living on autopilot, disconnected from the here and now and our present experiences. Now, one remedy for this is mindfulness, which involves direct and non-judgmental awareness of the present moment. You may have heard of mindfulness as a form of meditation, and of course that's a part of it, but there is so much more, because it can also be a general awareness of your life's experiences. Now, I came across a quote where it says, when you are mindful, you are awake to life on its terms, fully alive each moment as it arrives and as it is, as well as when it ends. That was by M. Sanderson, a PhD. But the definition of mindfulness. And mindfulness is awareness without judgment of what is via direct and immediate experiences. So mindfulness is actually in the now. How often are you aware? And I'm going to give you a few examples to give you some ideas, and you might even start to think, I never even think about that. But the first one is a very simple one, where you eat dessert and notice every flavor you are tasting, instead of eating dessert while you're looking around and having a conversation, seeing who you know. But if you're being mindful, you're not thinking about whether it's good or bad to even have a dessert, and should I be doing this, and I need to watch my waist and all that kind of stuff. You are just really having dessert. So you are in the moment thinking about sometimes we ask people what they had for dessert, they can barely remember if there was a name to it, but if you then ask about the flavors or what it tasted like, most people have no idea. They say it was lovely, or even worse, it was nice. Now that's a word that nice is a cup of tea and nice is grass to grow, as my partner Arthur always says. But it was amazing, exquisite, scrumptious, tasty, all these kind of words. But nice, you need a few more words in your vocabulary. But another one is having gotten rid of any anxiety of self-consciousness, you dance to music and experience every note, instead of wondering if you look grateful or indeed foolish. We've all heard, about the thing, dance as if nobody's watching. Well, it's that kind of thing. But even if somebody's watching, who cares? If you just are just mindful of that beautiful music around you, and every note gives you another idea to make a movement, and who cares what the movement is like? It's your movement in the present, being mindful of what you're doing. And Another one is thinking about someone you love or someone you hate. You pay attention to exactly what you love or hate, and what those feelings are like. You, you're not caught up in justifying the love or the hate yourself. You're just diving into the experience with full awareness that you're actually diving into it. Now, the last one is something that really spoke to me as well. I mean, even the dessert, because I've woofed down a dessert in quick time just because I wanted to be finished with it, and it's part of my meal. But this one as well, walking through the park. When you're actually walking through the park, now what does it mean? It means you let yourself actually show up in the park. I mean, we've heard of this, if you're having a conversation, you need to show up. Well, even in a walk, as simple as that, you walk through the park, aware of your feelings about the park, of your thoughts about the park, or how the park looks, the smells in the park, the trees, any animals, the greenness of the grass, any flowers, are just a sensation of each single step you take. Now, this is very different than walking in the park and just not showing up. Instead, walking through the park while you're distracted by the thoughts of what you'll have for lunch, or the feelings towards a friend who we just argued with, or worries about how you're going to take care of this month's bills. Being present. I mean, I often, when I'm back with my parents in Scotland and walking with a dog, and they live in the forest anyway, so walking through the forest to just listen to the birds and the leaves and the quietness. And also watching deer crossing a field, the smell of the pine trees. It's incredible when you really do those kind of things. Yes, and I've also got moments that I'm just lost in thought and not even noticing anything. But when we do, how much more meaningful do those moments become? So if you really stop to think of it, you'll realize that very few of us devote ourselves to living mindfully, meeting each moment of life as it presents itself with full awareness, letting go of the judgments. Instead, we do things automatically without ever noticing what we're doing. We're always ready to judge ourselves and others, of course. We regularly do the 2, 3, or even more things at once. We frequently get so caught up in the thoughts and feelings about the past or the future that we're lost in them, discounting and disconnecting from what is happening right now, in the present, right in front of us. How often has that happened to you? It certainly happened to me. So do we have to become more mindful? Is it more healthy? Because when you think that, what happens when you become more mindful as well, you put all the other stuff away. You're actually here now. In coaching, we always talk about it. When I have a coaching client, I am focused. I am 100% listening in the present, listening to what my client is saying or even not saying. And you can only do that when you're fully present. I'm not thinking about who my next client is going to be, or what I'm going to do tomorrow, or even what's going to be for lunch. No, it's also being mindful, being present all the time. And there's, if you can do more things at once, there's lots of rewards living this way, because we can get a lot done quickly. And then we start thinking of ourselves as efficient, and be seen by the world as productive and smart. In highly industrial and technological societies, a high value is placed on doing a lot at once. In fact, people sometimes make fun of each other by saying, "What's wrong with you? Can't you do more than one thing at once?" But at what price? What is the price for continually doing so much for everybody all over the place, being busy? You have a price to pay for that too. We also live without awareness, because sometimes living with full awareness is painful. We avoid painful thoughts, feelings, or situations when we are afraid, angry, ashamed, or sad, because we're convinced that we can't do anything to change them, and we're also convinced we can't stand to live with them. So, for instance, have you ever avoided bringing up a problem in a relationship with someone because you're afraid the person will get mad at you, attack you, or even leave you? You keep avoiding bringing up the problem because you feel so scared. So you get yourself off the fear hook temporarily by not talking about it. In the meantime, you're ashamed of yourself for not speaking up. You get more and more annoyed with the other person. You try to ignore what he or she does that bothers you. but the problem gets worse and worse. Finally, you just give up, letting the relationship run into the ground. I mean, how many of us have had close friendships even? We're not talking about spousal relationship, but close friendships where something happened and we just lost touch. We just, at that moment, we were upset with each other and we just never bothered. And sometimes forevermore. But in other times you go back to each other 10 years later and you're so sad about the time you've wasted because you still wanted to be friends, but you just didn't know because you were afraid and all these fears I mentioned. It has happened to a lot of people. If you've lived long enough, you've had relationships that you don't even understand how all of a sudden friends left you where you thought you were friends for life. But when the problem gets worse and it runs into the ground, I wonder always, maybe that problem could have been solved, maybe not. But one thing's for sure, you will never know if you don't at least give it a try. And not tomorrow, because as you're thinking about any problem, not even in this mindfulness, but any problem, the more you think about it, the longer you think about it, the worse it gets and the more difficult it gets to actually start talking about it in the future and to bring it into the now. You'll just keep shoving it, kicking that ball forward. But there is an important distinction to make between unavoidable pain and having a problem with the person you love versus the suffering you cause yourself by letting fear control you, judging yourself for feeling afraid, assuming nothing you'll try would work instead of trying out solutions, feeling guilty about feeling angry towards someone you love, or judging that person for causing the problems in the first place. How much damage do you think that will actually do to you? That's why mindfulness is something else that is very important in self-care. This living in the now, giving yourself some space, be in the now. And it doesn't always have to involve a problem or other people. Just being fully present where you are with what you do. There are many ways of mindfulness could help you with the above example. I've provided you with just a few ways below, which I hope will act as a catalyst for your journey into this intriguing subject. Now, the first one is that you could use mindful skills and bring your attention to the feelings of annoyance instead of pushing them away and trying to talk yourself out of them. Maybe you're afraid, you can't stand to feel annoyed, but actually watching how you feel inside, you realize, hey, it's just an annoyance. Just an annoyance for a few minutes, and I can stand that bit. The second one is you could use mindfulness to become a great detective and notice exactly how and when you feel annoyed. Maybe it's when he or she had 3 cups of coffee before seeing you. Maybe it's when both of you are tired. And maybe it's when he or she had a bad day at work. Maybe it's when you had a bad day at work. In this way, you use awareness to get specific and clear about what contributes to the problem. Now, the more specific you get about what caused the problem, the better chance you have of solving it. Ask him or her to drink less coffee or switch to decaffeinated coffee. Don't bother doing that to me. I'll drink less coffee instead. But make plans to get together when you're rested and don't meet at bad work days. Now, if all your work days are bad, you have a little bit more of a challenge. But these are some of the solutions that can happen when it's about awareness of what's happening. So, and then you have to be in the now. You have to be mindful of everything that's happening. That's what this is all about. But you could use your mindfulness skills, and if you don't have them yet, we'll talk into that. But to watch your mind generate thoughts like, oh, it shouldn't be this way. Why can't we just get along? Real friends don't have problems. Oh no? Then you haven't been a real friend for long enough. Listening in on your thoughts, you realize that your expectations don't fit with reality. There you go. So you work on changing your expectations. You could be mindful. You could use mindfulness skills as you talk through the problems with your friend to bring you full and open awareness to whether or not you experience your friend listening to and understanding you, or is he or her defending themselves and criticizing you. If he or she really listened and caring, you might notice relief inside and decide to keep working with him or her on the problems in the friendship. Now that maybe makes some sense. On the other hand, if you notice that he or she, because it could be either, is dismissive and it could be just a friend, as well, or non-responsive. Each time you talk about a problem, you might notice that you are kind of sad and disappointed, but not willing to put more energy into the friendship that makes you so unhappy. And that's when these things happen, that people move away from each other. So, just to summarize for today, mindfulness is awareness without judgment of life as it is, of yourself as you are, and other people as they are, in the here and now, via direct and immediate experiences. When you are mindful, you are awake to life on its terms, fully alive to each moment as it arrives and as it is, also as it ends. Of course, in order to build and maintain mindfulness, because we've talked a lot about it, how do you do all this kind of stuff, requires specific skills that are practiced over and over. I mean, it's the same in all these areas. It's not something that you do once and think you get it and you feel better now. Yeah, maybe you feel better now by doing something once, but if you feel better, keep doing it more and more. So this is the kind of things I will be talking into tomorrow. So I hope you got something out of this about mindfulness. Try to start thinking this subject already, because I'm coming back tomorrow and talk about how and why to practice mindfulness. Jan Roberts from sunny South Africa. I'll see you tomorrow. Have an amazing rest of your Monday. Take care.